Nice.
Hello, my name is Michael J. Russ. Welcome to the Beyond the 3D podcast. Today, going to do something a little bit different because I have a wonderful guest by the name of LaRose. And what we're going to talk about today is what we can be doing now in terms of reassessing our own long-term, our current health, and how we can maybe put together a roadmap for moving forward in the future where we are healthier, we're stronger, we're more enthusiastic, we're happier, we're more energetic, and ready to do battle with viruses and germs and bacteria with an immune system that is vibrant and healthy versus one that has been compromised beyond all recognition by our own lifestyle choices. So my guest today is LaRose. LaRose is a holistic health practitioner. She's also a energy medicine practitioner. She likes to say that she is a gifted treasure hunter. And I say welcome to Lisa. Welcome, Lisa, to the Beyond the 3D podcast.
Thank you, Michael. And I so appreciate you having me. It's really an honor to be with you. You just radiate and shine every time I see you. It's always a delight. Always a delight.
Always my pleasure as well. In my view is, and has been for 30 years, that people have, basically we live in a society where we take things for granted. Our long-term health is not on the radar because it's long-term, it's somewhere out there. And if it doesn't impact us today, we really don't care about it. And a lot of lifestyle choices that we make are detrimental to our own immunity and our own long-term health, yet we make them, we do them. And we think we're invincible when we're younger. I mean, I think I did too when I was 18, 19, 20. I thought I was invincible all the way through my early 30s until I woke up and had this epiphany. And the epiphany was, what do I want to look and feel like when I'm 60? What do I want to look and feel like when I'm 60? Because I saw people when I was 30, type 2 diabetes, obesity, the hypertension, those kinds of things were not as prevalent with younger people at my age at the time as they are now. We've got teenagers and people in their early 20s with diabetes, obesity, heart disease, coronary artery disease, and hypertension, type 2 diabetes. It's really, really, really awful, quite frankly. And a lot of it is basically lifestyle. I want to quote one guy. There's a gentleman, and I want to get your comments on this because the gentleman's name is David Katz, MD, and he basically in an interview this last week caught my eye. That's the sort of thing I like to watch for. 80% of all chronic disease, premature death is preventable using lifestyle as medicine, which is something that you and I have been very much involved in without even having putting that kind of label on it. We just kind of knew, I guess, that this was the right way to move, and that he's into very much into harm minimization, which is again what we've been following. But I think it's a great little moniker. What do you think about the fact that people have been they do things that are detrimental to their body today and expect the healthcare system to pick up the pieces 20, 30 years down the road?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question. I was fortunate as a child. I had a grandmother who everybody thought she was crazy because she was so particular about how she cared for herself, whether it be supplements or food. She was doing yoga back when it wasn't cool to do yoga. And when she was in her 80s, she fell down a flight of stairs and she didn't break anything. She was delivering Meals on Wheels for individuals that were not able to get out. And for her to be, fall down a flight of stairs and break nothing, it was because she kept her bones strong. She kept her mind active. Ironically, she smoked. And it wasn't until, she got emphysema that she ended up quitting smoking. But that was one of my role models. And so as a university student, I was in pre-med, and my father got cancer my junior year of college. Now, what's so interesting, and it sort of is a good metaphor for me, what's going on right now, you look at something that can be seen as a challenge as a blessing. Had I gone down that path, I never would have opened up the doorway that I have to learning and the experiences I've had now. But I looked at, choices that my father made that he thought were good choices based on what doctors recommended. He had a very severe condition called psoriasis, which affects a lot of people. And my grandmother kept saying to him, it's the food you eat. You're eating too much pasta. You're eating too much tomatoes. Basically, she was telling him he was in an acidic condition and it's too much for your system. And unfortunately, my father lost his battle with cancer 2 years later. But what I learned in those 2 years completely opened new doorways to me. And so what was interesting about what I learned, I was actually able to help a friend of mine's father who had a similar type of cancer 2 years later with everything that I learned. And what was interesting, and what I'm sure you will concur with, is that it wasn't necessarily about, restricting things, eliminating things. It's about making different choices. And different choices can be about adding things in. And the things that we add in can be very, very simple. Exercise is huge, getting out and move. And I know that you embrace exercise, and there are simple practices that you incorporate. I would be interested in hearing, for you, I know you do a lot of breath work, and how that simple act of being conscious of your breath and conscious of the thoughts in your mind has shifted your perception as far as your wellness and your immunity as well.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because I've been walking now for 3 years, every day that I can. I attempt to do at least 3 miles, and at a pretty good pace, anywhere between 3 and 3.5 miles an hour. I'm just kind of booking right along. And I notice people who are also walking as I'm walking, and on the street, and they've got earbuds in and things of that nature. Some of them headphones on, and although I like audio and I do all my books in audio, I don't like to listen to other people. I consider that sort of thing distraction generally when I'm walking. I use walking as a form of meditation, and meditation from a perspective of deep breathing in and filling the upper lungs and the lower lungs, and really taking in a deep, solid breath, and then exhaling lower lung and exhaling upper lung, and trying to get all the air out of me. And then I do it all over again. I move, get that air moving within me, and do this conscious breathing technique throughout pretty much half of my walk. And what's interesting is that I'm not a person who goes to a gym. I have joined gyms and I haven't gone. And I feel it's kind of like water. You like to drink it, but if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And for me, the gym is out of sight, so it's out of mind. You know what I mean? I just don't go. I don't get up, and I don't go to the gym at 5 o'clock. When I was living in California, I got up at 5:30 in the morning and I meditated for 45 minutes before I did anything else. And to me, that was more valuable than getting up and going to a gym. I would do some form of exercise later on in the day. However, I have to work exercise in and around what I was doing throughout the day. So for now, I work out of my office. This is my home office. So this whole stay-at-home thing is nothing new to me. I've been staying at home for the better part of 17 years, and it's easy for me. I've already adapted. I don't need to adapt to something new. I just need to not go out except to go to the grocery store. For me, though, the beautiful thing about the walk is that I can do my hour. I can get out for an hour. I can breathe in the fresh air, which is really beautiful. I can listen to the birds. I just pay attention to nature. I listen to the trees rustle in the wind. I'm watching birds fly by, and get some herons, gray and blue herons that fly around. There's some osprey that are leaving their nest and going out and seeking food. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I walk around part of a golf course, so I'm observing people as well. And that's an exercise that to me doesn't take up a lot of time. I don't have to drive anywhere to go do it. There are people here that get out and cycle or bike. There is a trail, a several mile trail that you can walk up to and walk down or whatever. To me, the reason people don't do exercise is because they make it really, really difficult for themselves. They set this overly ambitious goal, and that is not in sync with their normal rhythm of life. So if it's not in sync with their normal rhythm of life, they don't do it after a few weeks or a month because it's so abnormal, okay? Abnormal to what they do. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, yoga, I have a stretching routine. I had back in the early 80s, I had a herniated L5-S1 disc, and I had the whole sciatica, numbed the right leg, the whole 9 yards, excruciating pain.
Wow.
And yeah, I went to my neurologist and he goes, walk. And I said, what are you talking about? I can't even get down to the end of the block. He says, then go down to the end of the block. And the next day, go to the end of the block plus 1 step. And then the next day, into the block plus 2 steps. And I said, oh, okay. He says, you need to strengthen your back and you need to strengthen your core. So you need to walking will help strengthen your back. And you need to do some specific exercises that will help strengthen your core. Once you do those 2 things, you'll never have another back problem ever again. And this thing, and that combined with some massage and some really good chiropractic work, within 6 months, I was doing really well. Now, years later, decades later, I have an extremely strong core. I've always focused on the core. I've always remembered that. Most people have a weak core. And the way he put it to me back then was, he says, Michael, most people are only lifting an ice cube tray away from a herniated disc. Everybody has got subluxation in their back. Everybody is just one little thing, one little twist, one little turn away from having a major back problem. What do? They come to me and they want drugs. They want muscle relaxers. They want painkillers. And he says, Michael, I'm not going to give you any of those. And I said, thanks, because I'm not taking them. And he goes, oh. So I went home, and I'm telling you, it was the kind of excruciating pain. I think my wife at the time, I think several times I said, would you just put me out of my misery tonight? Just smother me when I'm sleeping, because I just can't stand this pain. I had to learn everything. I had to learn a new way to lift. I had to learn a new way to lay down, to sit down. I had to learn how to lift things again. I had to learn a lot of different ways, of new ways of doing things, because most of what we do as human beings is incorrect when it comes to having a healthy back. So I did that, and I attempt to pass on that information as much as I can to people who have back problems. And unfortunately, most of them, their doctors give them muscle relaxers, and painkillers, which literally numb and deaden your biofeedback mechanism, your natural mechanism. So you're like, you know what? I tell them, I say, how are you going to know you did something wrong if you don't feel that you did something wrong? They go, oh, I don't know. They just want the pain to go away. This is the society we live in. We don't care what we do today. We don't care what we do today. We want to eat fake food, processed ingredients. We want to avoid vegetables. We want to eat fast food. We want it now. We want it quick. We want to go. We want it cheap. And unfortunately, what we have is a lot of processed salts, sugars, chemicals, chemical flavorings, all of these, and preservatives that really aren't good for our body. And a lot of it is just fake. The food is just fake. That's all it is. You know, you could walk around a grocery store, and the way the grocery store is laid out, you know this and I know this, the grocery store is laid out and with all the fresh stuff on the outside. So, you know, produce, meat, milk, eggs, butter, it's all on the outside. It's all on the outside for a reason. The inside is all the processed stuff, things that come in that have high salt, high sugar content, and manufacturers have figured out. Now, I think you know this, and I think my listeners know this, that about 30 years ago, in my late 30s, I made a decision during that epiphany to just eliminate things. You were talking about just add certain things. And for some people, it's a challenge to add certain things to their diet. because again, that is kind of outside their normal routine. And what I tell people is figure out what you need to eliminate, because sometimes that's easier just to not do something, just to avoid doing something than to adopt a new habit. Just get rid of that thing that you're doing. When you have that tendency to want to go into that McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell drive-through, don't. Just don't. I don't care what it is, just don't. And when you after a few weeks of not doing that, you would have weaned yourself from the preservatives and the things they're putting in their food to make it addictive, the salt, the high salt and sugar content that's in the food, the processed ingredients, the things that you need to wean yourself from. Now, I just want to tell you this. Your grandmother at 80 falling down and not breaking a thing is pretty phenomenal. And I have to ask you a question. Did she do something specific to actually keep her bones strong? I know she smoked, forget about that. But what did she do? Because usually movement and exercise help keep your bones strong, I know. But what did she do?
We know she was Norwegian, and there were a lot of things that she truly believed deep in. She would get reflexology treatments. She would go to an elder woman to work on her feet, all the nerve endings in the hands and the feet, and she would utilize that to keep her bones strong. She always, I think, for her and for her sister passed at 106 last year.
Wow.
They were farm girls, so they grew up with a lot of hard work. At that time period, they were given Canada was giving away land if you would break the land, and so the families moved from Wisconsin to Canada, and so the children were expected to work on the farm. And my aunt, who is 93, she still works in her garden, tills the soil. She's stubborn as all get out. That's what Norwegians are known for. But it keeps her strong. She tells me all the time, "Don't treat her like a baby." To really let her do her work. And I think to myself, well, am I doing her a disservice by picking up the garden hose and moving it for her? No, that's what's keeping her strong. She's got a garden hose from the 1950s, and it's heavy as all get out. And I think it keeps her really strong. Plus, she reads every day. She keeps her mind sharp. As you were saying, I really love you talking about the core and how you strengthen your back. And as you were talking, I thought, what a great metaphor for immunity, because that's really where this comes from. This comes from our core. So what do we add in? When I talk about adding in, I talk about water, hydration. Most people are not aware of all of the different things that are in their water. So if you drink tap water, there are certain things that you need to be conscious of how it's affecting your body. There's a lot of chlorine that they add to the water, and what that does is it displaces iodine from your system. And iodine is really one of those very important minerals to keep the thyroid strong. But they found in different studies that it's a big preventative, and there's a correlation between iodine and breast cancer. A lot of physicians have researched that, but it's not just that, it's other types of cancer. In my practice, and not because I ever advertised for it, but it seems that people who are out of balance with cancer find me. And so when I work with them, that's one of the first places we go to is diet. What are you putting in your mouth? Not just what you put in your mouth now, but what did you put in your mouth as a child? Because oftentimes, as you know, people will go to their comfort food. So if your comfort food is ice cream, what I tell people, there's lots of other avenues for ice cream. If you're going to have ice cream, make sure you read the label. Buy yourself a really good pint of ice cream where all of the ingredients are real, that there's no chemicals within that ice cream.
People don't know there are a lot of chemicals in ice cream, commercial ice cream.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of it. You're thinking, it's been mushed and crushed and blended and blah blah and put in the container. No. There's a lot more that goes in there, and even chemical flavorings go in there.
Absolutely. And I will. For your listeners, Michael, I'll send you a list of some of the ingredients that are in commercial ice creams. And when you see them, it's
Oh,
shocking,
yeah.
you know, what they're used for in the chemical industry and how they get into food. But what's interesting, and I've questioned this a lot because I'm a big advocate for
Mhm.
educating around chemicals in food. In other countries, they do not allow chemicals that are put in food in the United States to be put
Right.
in Britain and in Canada. What I actually have a photograph of the last time I was in Canada with coffee creamer. They cannot call it coffee creamer. The government will not allow the creamers to be called a cream. They're coffee colorants. And then you look at the ingredients in coffee colorants, and they're basically one chemical away from being plastic. So you wonder why people have challenges with their arteries and whatnot. It's because of the hydrogenation process. So when you really start to understand, so going back to ice cream. So if you really like ice cream, I'll tell people, you have bananas on your countertop and they start to get really ripe. Peel them off, put them in a plastic baggie, put them in the freezer. If you have a blender or a food processor, once they're frozen, you can add other fresh fruit. You can add raw chocolate to it. The bananas create a natural sweetness, and you can have ice cream for breakfast should you want to have ice cream for breakfast, and you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Okay, I like that idea. I like that idea. You know, where we at right now, I mean, all this ties into, and the reason I want to do this show now is because we've got this COVID-19 issue, all going, crisis, pandemic all over the world. And a lot of people are running around in fear and having a lot of anxiety. Some people are afraid of their neighbors, afraid of strangers. It's gotten to be a really crazy thing. But one of the interesting things that Dr. Cass was talking about is how COVID has come at a time which it comes right at you. The timeline for harm for smoking, whether it's cigarettes or cigars, having an unhealthy lifestyle, and those types of things that lead to unhealthy eating habits, no exercise, being a couch potato, being sedentary, basically, has he refers to as to hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease, and coronary artery disease, and that kind of thing, and obesity, stalking you in slow motion. And we have a fight or flight mechanism that's we're hardwired in our DNA to fight or flight. In other words, if we see a risk that is imminent, we will change right then and there to avoid that risk. Right? You don't drive a car down to go down the wrong lane on the road. You know what's going to happen. It's imminent and it's going to be quick. So you make sure that you drive safely, that you stay in your lane, that you obey some sort of speed laws, quotations around that one, and the like. But that what happens is that we become blind because we have a fight or flight mechanism built and hardwired into our DNA. We literally avoid become blind, I should say, we can become blind to long-term health factors, long-term risks that are out there because they're not real. We can't touch them, we can't see them. And that's really the thing about this COVID thing that's got everybody upset, is that it's not, you can't see it, you can't touch it, you don't know who's going to get it, who's not, and you're afraid that you are going to die from it because all they do on the news is parade the death count every 10 minutes. But COVID comes at a time where in the United States, at least, it is exposing the chronic health it's taking advantage of the chronic health liabilities. It's taking them and turning them into an immediate threat. These things that were supposed to be long-term, which are now happening now because younger and younger people are being seen by doctors with, again, coronary artery disease, type 2 diabetes is rampant. My family, everybody in my family has type 2 diabetes now. Everybody.
Oh, yes.
In my family, and my dad had it too before he passed 5 years ago. And I had I just had my blood tested, the whole panel, lipid panel, the whole 9 yards, about a month ago. And I don't have risk factors for type 2 diabetes. I don't have the issues that my brother and sister and mother have, and my dad had. And that's good to hear because that shows that this harm minimization plan that I've been implementing for the last 30 years, here now I'll be 60 I'll be 62 in 30 days from today.
What a
And
blessing.
huh?
What a blessing.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It's awesome. It's awesome. 60 is the new 40. At least for me, it is
or the
because
new 29, you know?
yeah, oh, what the heck, make it 29. I think 29 is a stretch. That's just a bit of a stretch with this. But when it comes to the way I feel, my energy level, my enthusiasm, and my creativity and intuition, and cognitive abilities, I feel minimum like I'm 40. And the what's interesting is when I tell people look at me and go, "Oh man, you look great. You don't look 60." And I said, "It's by design. You got to live life by design.
Good for
You got
you.
to
That's
stop doing."
awesome.
Yeah, you live life by design. You curate your health. You don't just let it happen by accident. Because if you leave it to accident, generally what's going to happen is it's going to be a pretty tragic accident.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll start making choices. And I got to tell most people, I'm not a vegan. I'm not paleo. I'm not keto. I'm not vegetarian. I'm not whatever. I'm a carnivore. I just shrink down the amount of like red meat that I've eaten over time. And I told my mother the other day on the phone, I said, she says, "What are you having for dinner?" I said, "Filet." And she says, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And people look at filet and goes, "Oh, that's really incredibly expensive." Well, you can buy a grass-fed filet, a half a pound for two people for like $7, $8, $9.
Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah. I bought it on sale for $7, but on regularly it would have cost me like $9.50 to $10. So I figure, we buy the best grass-fed filet for a half a pound. That's all we need, 8 ounces. And generally, I'm okay if the meat if the piece is 6 ounces. I don't eat an 8 ounce steak in a restaurant anymore. We split it. If we have to go to a restaurant, I'm not eating it. I used to eat 8 to 10 ounces of a nice good steak, or you used to get into a nice porterhouse. I look at those things now and I go, who could eat all that? I kind of wean myself down on the amount of meat, and add all the accoutrement of vegetables and salad and with
Mhm.
olive oil and all this other kind of stuff. And my doctor looks at me and he goes, my doctor's like 30, I think he's like 33. And he says, "You're the healthiest 61-year-old I've ever seen." He says, I don't have patients like you. You're different. You're an anomaly. And I ended up telling him how to strengthen his back and how to strengthen
Yeah.
his core. And it's funny because doctors look at me and go, "Well, over 50, you're supposed to take that whatever shot." I said, "No, not doing that. Not doing that either. Not taking that. Not taking that. Whatever that shot is. That oh my gosh, the one that the smallpox. All of a sudden, it just popped out of my head. Um, shingles, the shingles." And I looked at him. And I said, "Shingles. I had chickenpox. All of us did." And my mother recanted to me the other day when we all got chickenpox. And she took us. We got it on the way. We were coming back from. We were driving from New Jersey down to Florida to see my dad's family. We're on Highway 95, and we came down with chickenpox on the way down, and we didn't end up going down and seeing them because we had chickenpox. But what they did was they took a detour. They went to the beach. We rented a motel, and we went out and we played in the water because salt water you don't itch when salt water is good for wounds. So
Mhm.
they let us go and play in the salt water. We didn't sequester ourselves, quarantine ourselves in a room in a house somewhere, so we went out and played in the water. My mother, brilliant, brilliant woman. None of us had any issues with scars or anything like that. We didn't even know we had chicken pox. We just knew we were out there playing in the water. And she says, "Just keep playing in the water. Just keep playing. You won't itch. You'll be fine." And it was marvelous. Um, but when you're looking at curating your life, and I just want you to just let our audience know what you do, how you've curated your health to this point. We're not going to say how old you are or anything like that. That's
How young
not.
I am? That's
Huh?
one thing. That's the first thing. How young I am. You know,
Yeah,
the first thing.
how
You know,
young you are. How young you
I tell each one of my clients that every morning they need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, I'm a strong, healthy, vibrant young person. And really, as you start to train your mind And it's interesting because for me, so just in a nutshell, right? I had a lot of health challenges when I was a child. People say, you don't know what it's like. Oh, yeah, I do know what it's like. I had a very high rheumatic titer. So when I was a child, from a young age, it felt like my bones were coming out of my physical body. I was in so much pain. And it wasn't until my mother found a physician who was Scottish who figured it out. He was the only one who looked at that in my blood. And I'm an O positive, so I should be a meat eater. But when I stopped eating meat when I was in college, only because the roast beef looked like it had a rainbow tint to it, and we never had rainbow
In
tinted roast
college, it does. Yes, it does. It does.
yeah, so I just stopped eating it, and guess what? I started feeling better. And as the more I eat, a vegetarian based diet, I'm not vegan either. I don't ever, recommend. You have to do what's right for you. For me, I love a salad that's as big as probably somebody's plate. Um, I eat very high energy foods. In the wintertime, I eat more cooked foods because my system seems to feel that it needs that. I love dark leafy greens. I love fruit, for individuals that are having challenges with diabetes. The first thing you hear is stay away from fruit, right? And for me, I don't believe that. It doesn't resonate with me.
Right.
If you look at chimpanzees, and this isn't my research, they're one strand of DNA different from us, but they don't get diabetes. They don't get the diseases that we get. What do when they eat? They take a leaf and they wrap that leaf around what they're eating. And it's the chlorophyll in the plants. It's the living, energy from the sun that really makes a big difference. I'm a huge hydration person. I drink a lot of water, and I love to exercise, and I love to smile. I really feed myself positivity.
Mhm.
And, Michael, I just want to share with you, because your words that you gifted me the other day about this time being an evolutionary catalyst, or I embrace them, and I love, love, love. I just thank you, thank you, thank you for those, because, this is the metaphor that I used just yesterday with somebody. I said, when I walk at the park, I could choose to focus on all the people in the mass or not in mass or whatever, but I look at the flowers. I'm like you, we don't have herons here, but I look at the wildlife. And lately, because of we've been having a lot of high winds, there's more trash in the park.
Really?
And my brother said to me, gosh, there's a lot of trash here. And I thought about this sort of as a metaphor for what's going on.
Mhm.
Am I choosing to see the trees and the animals and keep my mind's thought, or am I seeing the trash? And then if I see the trash, do I walk by it and pretend it's not there?
Right.
Or do I pick it up? Do I bring, the next time I come to the park, do I bring a bag and I start picking up that trash? So it's sort of like what's going on in the world today. What pieces of trash are you going to overlook and step over and pretend they're not there? Or do you pick them up and make a different choice about what you're going to do with it? Do you bring a recycling bag? Is that worthy of, sharing with others, picking it up like you do with the evolutionary catalyst? That to me is an invaluable tool. And I really thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that.
Yeah, that was my last podcast. By the time this podcast airs, which will just be next week, I've already done the Evolutionary Catalyst podcast. I found that very unique. It came out of the video, one of the videos that I had sent you, and it blew my mind to perceive what happens to you in life, experiences in life as evolutionary catalysts instead of good or bad, positive or negative. They're all just things that occur, and all of them lead to your own evolution as a person, as a human being. Your thinking, whatever. And for you, what I think is awesome, I love the way you talk about hydration, because my mother's sequestered she's 91. She's not going to hear this podcast, but 91, and she's very energetic, very happy, loves being at home, has no problem being in her house for 7 weeks now without leaving the house. And she does have a back patio. She can go get some sun. She can get some vitamin D, which is awesome. And one of her issues, and my sister always tells me, she doesn't drink enough water. She doesn't hydrate enough. And so I was going to get out there in the middle of March. Unfortunately, that never happened because the airline, everything fell, went to hell in a handbasket in March. And I couldn't leave. I couldn't get on a flight. I couldn't get a flight there. It was all canceled. Everything just got disrupted. So I had to cancel the trip. But one of the things that I always tell people about, and I have two other videos on my YouTube channel. One is that have a lot of views. One is about real salt from Redmond Trading, which comes out of the they call it Jurassic salt because it's salt, sea salt from the old salt flats millions of years ago, and when that was an ocean. And the other is magnesium from Dr. Carolyn Dean, which is a liquid magnesium where you can drink it. You can take as much as you want. Because magnesium, I think she says that the processes in your body that use magnesium is about, it's a key constituent to hundreds of chemical reactions in the body. And I think she says somewhere upwards of 700. And our bodies cannot create adequate amounts of energy required for the immune system to function properly if we don't have magnesium as a catalyst. And so magnesium, and also the heart is the biggest consumer of magnesium in our body. So the other video I have is about magnesium, and these videos happily have thousands of views. Into the mid 5 figures of views, because people are becoming more and more interested in what they're putting in their bodies. I want to hear your supplement routine in a second, those things that you take supplementary to the foods that you eat, because I think it's important to have some core nutrients that we weave into our lifestyle, so to speak. I hydrate with the magnesium. I have a container of this. I have a water bottle that I put a teaspoon of magnesium and some sea salt, real salt into, that has over 30 minerals. And I drink a couple of those a day to help get the magnesium and stay hydrated with the real salt in my body. And I do that because I walk in the morning, or I might play golf or whatever, but I never miss it. I never miss it. It's something that I've woven in. And this is what I profess all the time, is that you have to create lifestyle changes that are easy for you to weave into your life, that you'll stick to, because they flow with your natural path of living. The further away from the mean you go in terms of creating change in your life, the less the possibility that you will actually stick with it for as long as it will take to actually have any physical benefit for you long term.
Right.
So you can read about articles, you can read about stuff, and you can say, oh, that's great. And you can do 10 things. Likely by the end of 6 months, you'll be doing maybe one of them still, because they've become either too expensive to maintain, they've become too challenging for you to weave into your life as a habit. Because most people, let's face it, whatever it is has to be easy, right? So the fact that you stay hydrated, that's a big one for me. Being out of balance, I love that you said that, because dis-ease is being out of balance. And if you can prevent type 2 diabetes, if you can prevent heart disease, if you can prevent obesity, these things are all preventable. And right now in our society, young people, middle-aged people, and older people are all suffering from the same compromised immune system, which the COVID virus and other viruses like it in the future will take advantage of, will definitely take advantage of. So tell me, what kind of supplementation, what do you weave into your life on a daily basis that's easy for you, that works, and that's helped you to move yourself forward in terms of your own health?
So I start my morning with half a lemon in water, fresh lemon.
Yeah, I like that.
Lemon are actually, when we have enzymes in our mouth that convert it from an acid to an alkaline. But lemons are really powerful. They're loaded with vitamin C. They help to break up mucus in the body. They decongest the liver. So if you do one thing for yourself, it's a really simple thing to do. It sets the alkaline point for the day. So by decongesting the liver performs over 2,000 different chemistry functions in the body. People think about, their heart, you want to love your heart, but the liver is constantly filtering out all the junk all the junk. I always tell people, you know, it filters the blood, and the blood delivers nutrients to the cell. So if the liver is not optimal, then, you know, you're never getting the nutrition to your cells that you need. So that's one of the big things. And then I do a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Now, in the morning, I like to use just a pinch of cayenne pepper, an eighth of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. This comes from my Norwegian grandmother. She used to call it scrubbing baubles for the blood. And that, it doesn't have to be a lot, you know, so if you're sensitive to heat, you can always, you know, take it in a capsule. But, you know, certain things, and as you were talking about magnesium, that made me think of zinc, because that was one of the things that my grandmother firmly believed in. She said that was the master mineral that made everything work. And that was her wisdom. And, you know, so if I feel like I'm starting to get a cold or my immune system's down, I'll up my zinc. In the winter time, I take vitamin D3. If there's sunshine outside, you know, that's the best place. 20 minutes in the sunshine will give you vitamin D3. And as you know, if you saw my supplements in my kitchen, you would actually sort of laugh, but they're not used every day. But vitamin C is a big one for me. I love vitamin C. And a holistic pharmacist told me many years ago, vitamin C is vitamin C is vitamin C. So if you find a brand, again, I'm a big label reader with not a lot of binders and fillers.
Right.
The binders and fillers will nick your arteries, and you don't really want to have those. They do a lot of things in the body that you don't necessarily want. There's certain brands that I like because of the factor that they're very conscious of the purity of the vitamins. Right now, I'm taking along with my vitamin C, and I don't do it all the time, but it's MSM, which is methyl sulfur methane. Occurs naturally in the body. As we get older, it gets depleted. I can always tell when mine is depleted. I used to have asthma. I had 3 inhalers, and it was that same holistic pharmacist that said to me, if you want to heal your asthma, you need to take vitamin C and MSM. And I did it. 3 months later, I felt really good. 6 months later, I threw away my inhalers, and I haven't needed them since. But the side effect of healing my asthma was my knee, which always caused me challenges, healed. And so, so I'll take it. You know, some people say, well, how often do you take it? Well, maybe I'll need to take it for 6 months until I feel that it's in my system enough, and then I don't take it anymore. I don't need it. But I sort of let my body guide me. I still wear the same size that I wore when I was in high school. It's crazy to think about that I have a pair of jeans that I wore my freshman year of high school that I still fit in. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that is, I think you're probably the first person ever who I've heard that. Now I will say that I put on a jacket. I can still wear the same suit that I wore when I was 27. I can still wear that same suit, which is about as far as I'll go, because I'm not wearing anything I wore in high school.
Good for you.
I'm a good 45 pounds more than that now. However, I think it's more looking at fat content, and I encourage people to do this. You know, it's weird. We've got a health system that doesn't really reward people for being healthy, and it doesn't reward them for going and getting blood work once a year, which everybody, I believe, should, because it's kind of like this virus we got right now. If you don't test and know who's got it and who doesn't, you don't have a metric to work with. You don't know who should be sequestered and who shouldn't. And our economy's gone again to hell in a handbasket, because you've had to take the scattergun, everybody sequester approach, instead of actually attempting to find the people who have this virus, so that they can sequester away from others, so that they don't infect other people, and everybody else can go on living their life as normal, right? So, and if they do get the virus, it's a virus. You're going to build up antibodies, and I think in order long term, it's not just me, but it was Dr. Katz that said this as well. But I've always been thinking this, that when you're young and growing up, my mother never stopped us from going outside and getting in the dirt and whatever we were doing, touching things, putting in our mouth, whatever. That's always a good thing because our bodies help build immunity to those bacteria and other things that we encounter. Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
So
Michael, do you take, besides your magnesium and your salt that you incorporate, what other things do you use to keep yourself vital and strong?
I take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day, no matter what, 365.
You live
What
in
I
Florida.
discovered, yeah, I had a sunscreen business a number of years ago. The the fairer the skin, the less sun you need. The darker your skin, the more sun you need. And most African Americans are extremely deficient in vitamin D. Most people of color. You don't have to be African American. You can be Hispanic. Anybody who's got a good tan, a good melanin built up, the darker your skin gets in the summertime, the less vitamin D you're actually synthesizing because your skin has gotten darker. And so I just, although I do take my walks in the morning for an hour, I'm not out there with a t-shirt and shorts on yet. I'll be that way in the next week or so. However, regardless of when it is, I just take 10,000 IUs. That's it. Just two $5,000 tabs, $5,000 milligram tabs. And I go ahead and make sure that that's part of my routine. I take them as make my magnesium and sea salt water, take the 2 vitamin Ds, and I go. Now, I was taking, and I will be taking some more. I'm still waiting for another shipment. Dr. Dean has created a vitamin C that is purely from fruits. It has no filler or anything else. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like I said, I'm waiting for another shipment right here because I ran out and I didn't get it ordered quick enough. But she has a very unique 100% absorbable vitamin C in tablet form that is directly from fruits. I'll send you the information about that. I love her. She's a great friend. She was a great interview, and she's a great resource for me when I have questions for myself or I have other people who have questions that are sent in from watching the video interview with her. And what's unique now is that what you've done. By the way, I love the lemon and water because I do that myself. I put it in hot water, and I'm probably a cheater because depending on if it's a Meyer lemon, it's straight out. I don't add anything else to it. But sometimes if I can't find the Meyers, which are sweeter, have a tendency to be sweeter and less tart, I'll put just a very hint of honey in with it as well. I'll do that, and because some people, whatever, their taste buds are a little bit off. Honey to me is better than sugar, especially if it's wildflower honey from your own neck of the woods.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with that as long as you don't overdo it. You don't want to make it like a syrup. You don't want to make it so sweet that it's incredible. You want to taste the lemon, and I do that, which is really awesome. I do have the apple cider vinegar. How do you expound on what you do with the apple cider vinegar? Because Bragg's apple cider vinegar is awesome, and I know some people who what's her name? The black gal was on Star Trek. I was eating dinner with her one night. She said, "Oh, I use apple cider vinegar for everything. I bathe in it. I drink it. I put it all over my skin and my face. I wash my face in it." I'm like, really? Absolutely. So, what do you do with your apple cider vinegar?
So I love apple cider vinegar.
Yeah,
So
it is amazing.
I usually use about 6 to 8 ounces of water, and for what I share with my clients is a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar to a teaspoon of raw honey. And the reason I love raw honey, especially if it's locally grown, you're getting a lot of the things that you need to help combat allergies. A lot of the histamines and things like that people have challenges with, are collected. We have Japanese knotweed here in Pennsylvania, and it makes a really dark, rich honey. It's quite delicious, I think.
It is awesome.
Yeah, but if one of the things that I was going to suggest to you for clients that, like you said, with the lemon, sometimes it can be a little tart. So if I have somebody, I'll use grade B maple syrup, which is really loaded in minerals.
Yeah.
And this isn't my research, but Dr. Wallach many years ago did research about graying hair, and he said that was a copper deficiency. Now, copper by itself, you have to be very careful in taking a copper supplement. I don't necessarily, you can put things out of balance by saying, okay, that's what I need. But if you get a multi-mineral supplement, a good quality one, it can shift what's going on. My mother's husband, my mother got remarried later on in life, and he was snow white hair. And I told him about that. And he started taking a mineral supplement, and he started getting dark hair again. And it was interesting. He'd say to me, look at his, where you start graying at the temples. He
Mhm.
started getting stripes of dark jet black hair again. And it was really quite amazing. I think he didn't quite believe me until it started happening. And I'll have to see if I can dig up some pictures of him where he went from snow white back to dark hair.
Yeah, that's good. I have some minerals as well. What's interesting about what we're talking about here is that, just before I get down here, you're 1 tablespoon of vinegar to what now?
So a teaspoon
1 teaspoon.
of, of raw honey,
Okay.
and in room temperature water. And the reason you want to use room temperature water is you don't want to destroy the natural enzymes. Whenever you heat something up above, I believe it's 180 degrees, you destroy the enzymes.
So 1 tablespoon of vinegar to 1 teaspoon of honey.
Correct.
1 tablespoon vinegar, 1 teaspoon of honey. That's
And
the
for those that you're just getting started, that's what I do
yeah.
personally.
Yeah,
I
that's
use
cool.
more vinegar. But if you
And that's
want to
not
do
and that's not much. Now here's the interesting thing. Bragg's is not expensive and it lasts a long time. I mean,
right,
I think it's like $8.99 for a small bottle. Lemons, of course, you can find them various times of the year. They're not that expensive. Apple cider vinegar, cayenne pepper obviously is inexpensive. The vitamin D is incredibly inexpensive. Uh,
absolutely.
I think I can get 3 months, 90 pills for like uh, for um, for $16 or something like that. I mean, it's really inexpensive. If we're talking about being on a budget and wanting to supplement our healthier eating habits with some nutrients and other things, to me, you can substitute. If somebody drinks, there's some people out there who drink 3-4 cups of coffee. I mean, I know some people who actually do that. Others who drink a couple of cups of tea, this sort of thing. It's not a stretch to substitute half a lemon in water in the morning for tea or coffee. You just substitute one for the other. You can drink it on the way to work or whatever to integrate that into your lifestyle. It's not a stretch. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, and Michael, I wanted to share with you, a lot of grocers now have unpasteurized, their own label of unpasteurized vinegar. So you don't even have to buy the brand. You just want to
Yeah,
make sure that it's unpasteurized. And when
right.
they pasteurize it, it kills all of the good
Exactly. Yeah.
stuff in there. And, when you start to do those remedies, a lot of individuals that wake up with sinus difficulties, the lemons are anti-mucolytic, so they break up that mucus. So don't be surprised as you start to do it. You find yourself like, wow, it's a floodgate of sinus drainage that
Mhm.
is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It's breaking up the stagnation that you don't really want to have in your body.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to kind of end our talk here by kind of talking about kind of creating a picture of what a longer term harm minimization plan might look like. Something that maybe you've been doing and that I've been doing for the last 30 years. And I can simply say, for me, that it's about the target, of course, is to build your immunity. Right now, everybody needs to boot while they're at home. You're going to be buying food, having food delivered, whatever. Everybody's in a different financial situation, of course, because a lot of people have been furloughed or laid off, or know other people who have, and lost their jobs. It's about actually making better choices with regard to nutrition versus just getting even cereal. My gosh, the cereal shelf is 50 feet long and it's 8 feet or 7 feet tall. There are so many cereal choices for somebody who eats cereal in the morning. I simply say long-term health minimization plan, read the label. Start reading labels for sugar and salt, mainly sugar. Compare one versus the other. Look at the serving per serving size, so that you can see how much is per serving size. Because I know half a cup for the whole oats that I get, for a half a cup is a serving. So if you eat a whole cup, then you got to double everything that's there, and then you start extrapolating out and looking at, multiply that over 30 days and multiply that over 12 months, and see how much sugar you're actually consuming, how much salt you're actually consuming. I actually stopped buying canned soups and box soups, even organic. It doesn't matter what it is, because salt content got to be astronomical. The processed salt, and even if it says sea salt, oh my gosh, it's way too much. I want to be in control. I preach that all the time. Be in control. Take control of your life. So in building your immunity, I just have a couple of things I'll say, and I want your top three if you can give them to me. Mine includes a couple of things. Setting the intention to be happy and create a lifestyle that allows the happiness within me to flow. I've done a lot of episodes about happiness. I did another one, I think, a couple of episodes ago, if not the last one, because happiness is important. And you need to feel good. You need to feel energized, enthusiastic, happy, because it also boosts your immune system. So there's a lot of things you can mitigate in your life. You got to have a process for mitigating the things that you see as negative or adverse in your life, and the impact that they would have experientially on you and your happiness, the way you feel. That's big when it comes to building your immunity, minimizing stress, making sure that you're putting yourself, that you're curating your life versus just haphazardly just letting it happen and unfold before you. You have a lot more control than you otherwise think you have. You have major control. Thoughts, words, feelings, actions, all that is controllable. You cannot control where COVID goes. You can control everything else about you, about what you do, whether or not you wear a mask, whether you stay home, whether you don't, who you interact with. All that is controllable by you. And when COVID is gone, you still have all the choice for whatever it is that you decide to do. Environmental factors and exposure to. You talked about water earlier, about fluoride, about chlorine, in water. I know a lot of people we have a big problem in this world with plastic. I use a pure water filter that I filter all the water that comes out of the tap and everything else. And I'm interested in hearing what you do. But water, basically, don't take your tap water being healthy for granted. Take it for granted, because if it's not, and you, if your tap water is compromised and you drink that for years, then you're compromised. And again, this is something that's controllable. And we already talked about nutrients. Boosting your intake of nutrients, huge. Reading the labels of salt, sugar, and processed, staying away from fast foods. Soft drinks, oh my gosh, that aisle is 50 feet long. I don't even walk down that aisle anymore. I don't walk down the aisle that has soft drinks in it. I have no need for it. All the concocted drinks that they come up with that have no nutritional value whatsoever, putting that stuff in your body, you think it's great, you think you're doing something for yourself, you're hydrating yourself, nothing could be farther from the truth. So that's mine. Tell me what you think, if that our listeners, how you think they might be able to shape their harm minimization plan based on your own experience.
So I echo and applaud you, because if your grandmother, or for some of your younger listeners, your great grandmother did not recognize it as food, do not put it in your mouth. I mean, that is sort of one of my golden rules. It shocks me. I read things that's like brominated ester of rosin, and I'm thinking that is in, I won't name the product, but it's in a lot of soft drinks. And you think, what is that? What is that? Do you question that?
What's the resin doing in a soft drink?
It's frightening. Propylene glycol, what is it doing in Nutri-Grain bars or other, bars where, propylene glycol is an ingredient antifreeze. So you sort of think, not so much.
It's also been proven to cause cancer in rats.
Along with other things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, so you need to read labels. Become an educated label reader. It may take a little bit more time, but sometimes I'll actually take a photograph of a label and it just shocks me. And I look at it and I think this has got to come out of the food. I mean, I think there needs to be a whole conversation just about that.
Mhm.
Laughter, positivity. I mean, I embrace it, turning things around. I mean, you can tune into whatever channel, whatever frequency that you want. I choose to dial when somebody goes on an opposite of positive diatribe. I choose to kind of go, maybe not so much. Can we change that around? Not that I don't have bad days, we all have our days, but if I do, I'm going to look for something that makes me laugh, something that makes me smile. Usually it's one of my animals that are doing something goofy. But really being conscious of what I put into my brain, what I put into my visual field,
Right.
that in and of itself. And really the fellowship of good conversation with other people, having that connection. Being distanced, I don't really embrace that at all. I see people that I know in the grocery store, I ask them, can I give you a hug? It feels good to have that heart connection. There is
Yeah.
something really important, when you embrace somebody, and you do it you come from a place from the heart. I mean, there is nothing better. So I'm embracing you, Michael. I hope you feel the great big hug that I'm giving you, and I
Believe me,
really
I
so
feel your
appreciate
energy.
everything you do.
Energy has no time and space. I feel you. I love talking with you. I have conversations with you. And everybody, I've said this before, but everybody needs, you need to connect with people in your life who are positive. You need to have conversations that are enlightening, those that are forward thinking, intellectual. Instead of, there's just so much of diatribe, negative diatribe, as you said, out there. We have the choice about what we watch, what we ingest, what we fill our minds with. We can filter anything we want. And there's no reason why we need to sit around in this environment and watch the death count all day, or watch how many people have it and how many people don't, or how many people survive. None of that is really of consequence to you in your life. Your life is your life, and you can operate it any way that you see fit, based on your own needs, urges, desires, whatever. And there's a lot of control that we have, and this COVID thing is not going to be the last of its kind I think in our lifetimes. And being 60, almost 62, I don't think it's the last one we're going to see in my lifetime. But the amount of disruption that it's caused people's lives in the last couple of months is pretty astounding. It's pretty astounding. And the media, which you have to limit your exposure to, is like, it's like this, the COVID situation is like chum in the water, and they're the sharks, and they're all over it, and they're going to feed on it, feed on it, feed on it, until they have literally beat it to death and consumed every nuance of it that's possible. And we have to limit our exposure to that. We're here to live life, not to sit around and be depressed about it. And and I have some friends that are unemployed, that have lost their jobs, and luckily they have some savings that'll last them 4 or 5 months. Most people do not, and I really hope things get back to normal. And I'm in the camp that can occur, and that we're going to have to not be inside in order for this to get back to normal. In order for this to get through this, we have to develop our immunity to this thing. We can't run from it. It's going to be here. It's going to morph into something else later, as the flu virus has morphed for years on end, decades on end, centuries on end. Just continues to morph into something different. And the only thing we have control over at this point is not the viruses and the bacteria that are out there. We have control over what you and I have been talking about here today, Lisa, which is our own bodies, our own immune system, the way that we have the ability to fortify ourselves against anything and everything out there, including old age, which is, I think, an oxymoron, should be. Old age, as you were saying earlier, the way we think. I've told the experiment before of in the Northeast, when they put people who were in their 80s and 90s, who were walking with canes and walkers and all of that, and their shoulders were slumped over, and they were not happy people. They were coming out of a nursing home, and they said, "Hey, I had they put these people in an environment that was completely the 40s. Everything was the 40s, including the music, and to see how it transformed them for the time that they were in there. They were playing the music, they had the food, they had the environment. It sort of transported them back to the 40s, and boom, there it was. So I appreciate you being on, and the fact that that we were able to take this time. And for those of you out there who have been listening, take the moment, take the time to curate your life, to create a health, a harm minimization plan for yourselves so that you can move forward and look into the next 20, 30, 40 years, approach those years with an immune system that's incredibly strong. And not only that, but a demeanor, an attitude, and a state of mind, a state of being and feeling that is off the charts. That's what's going to get you through this virus or anything else. Okay. Thanks so much. My name is Michael Russ, and I appreciate your time today and listening to Lisa LaRose and myself. In the meantime, I'm signing off, and be well and take care. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.